I wake up on the morning of my 14th birthday, the morning that I would change, the morning that I would finally stand up for what I believed in. I looked around the room, and my eyes landed on the slave I've been issued. Her name is Martha, and she does a lot of things for me, including cleaning my room and doing all of my chores. She even dresses me. It makes me feel like a little girl, and she does, and I hate that feeling. Good morning, Martha. Good morning, Miss Caroline. What would you like to wear today on your birthday? She says, smiling back at me with gleaming teeth. Martha's skin is a chocolate brown, and her teeth are white in comparison. Her eyes are a mocha brown, and whenever she looks at me, I get a warm feeling, the same feeling I get when my mother looks at me. Martha's uniform is a black and white dress and apron. She hardly ever wears it when I see her, though I am always afraid that my daddy will whip her when she does it. And on a good day, she won't. I take off my pajamas, she doesn't wear it again, and I'm scared for her. Martha, you better wear your uniform. I walk out of the closet. Daddy's sure gonna get you this time. My bare feet on the hard wooden floor. Sweetie, I ain't scared of your daddy anymore. She states and goes around and Martha smiles. You know you don't have to dress me right. I am 14. I can't. Child. She pulls me in front of the mirror, and I take in my features. Plain, pale skin and blonde hair that travels past my waist. The blue of the dress brings out the pastel blue of my eyes, and they become almost piercing. I look at Martha, and for once I do believe the words she just said. After she brushes and curls my hair, I go down to the breakfast table where my mama, daddy, and brother Warren already sit. Warren stands up and looks at me. He hugs me, and we both sit side by side at the table. Good morning, birthday girl, my mama says as she grabs my hand across the table. Thank you, Mama. I have a special request for you, Daddy. I look into his eyes. I get up from the table. I want to go poofing out like I had my voice shortening, and then I walk up. You're not going into my room. Do you want that? He cut me off, feeling so his voice boomed around this Daddy. I wouldn't dream of going into the war. I want to go and something, and I want to go talk about something. I want to be able to speak about it because it's something I feel strongly about, and I feel that it isn't my good Caroline. We have talked about this before. I'm not a little girl anymore. Why won't you let me do this? Do you know what happens? And I feel the control of my temper get attacked. And Caroline, just stop. Warren whispers, "What?" I look at him incredulously. I don't want you to go either. You could get seriously hurt. I mean, look at the people who do these things. They risk their lives for this, and I just don't want to lose my little sister. His voice was soft. I won't get hurt. Mama, you understand? My voice rises and my mama lets go of my hand. Go to your room, Caroline, Mama whispers. I look at her, stunned. Her head I hear After a few minutes I hear a knock on my door. It could be Martha, but I have a feeling I know who it is already. I get up from my bed and go to open the door. Mama stands on the other side of the door, staring at me with regret-filled eyes. Can I come in? She asks, a small smile creeping onto her lips. Sure, okay, why let's go. I step back into the room so Mama has enough room to come necklace in. Sitting in it. I have something for your birthday, but I didn't want to give it to you in front of your father. Chain, and I take it out down on the box to next to me on my bed and holds out a small velvet box. I put it on my neck and fasten the clasp that will keep it safely on my neck. We should go, Caroline, my mother says, while still staring at the bed comforter. Really? Mama, you heard what Daddy said. He wouldn't let me go even if you went with me. But honey, we don't have to tell him. We can just go. Your daddy will have to stop his belly aching at some point, but we won't be here to hear it. She says. That night we plan to leave for Boston. Martha watches me with careful eyes. Even though she hasn't gone to school, she sure has been wise. I pack anything I might need to have for the long trip to Boston and meet my mother out on the porch. Caroline, Warren calls after me. I turn around and look at him. What, Warren? I want you to be careful. I love you, Caroline. He hugs me and I smile at him as I walk. My mother and I race out the front door to the car that is waiting for us. We pile our luggage into the back of the car and we head off to Boston. When we get on the boat, there are thousands of people in there. I'm crammed between a random lady and my mother. It takes hours to get to Boston. I don't think it was that long, but apparently it was. We step off the boat and the sun streams down on me. I inhale the salty air and walk down the boardwalk with my mother. I know exactly where to go, I say as I lead my mother down the boardwalk. We walk up to the building that I want to go to and enter through the door, letting the cool air rush over me. I look around at the small room and see a man crouched over a typewriter. "Excuse me, Spur?" I spoke. He looked up at me, wondering where my small voice had come from. "Yes, miss, may I help you?" he asked, looking beyond his glasses perched at the edge of his nose. "My name is Caroline Cassidy, and this is my mother, Sarah Cassidy. We heard that you were looking for more abolitionists to speak for your cause, and I am volunteering my mother and I for the job." I smiled broadly at the man, and he smiled back at me, a low chuckle rising from his throat. "You'd like to help my cause, Miss Cassidy? With your mamma's permission?" "Yes, sir. I'm sorry, but your name escapes me at the moment. What is it?" "William Lord Garrison, editor and owner of this paper. I would love more abolitionists. More than that, I need journalists to go to locations I will be speaking at, and cover their reactions there." I thought about this for a moment. If I started out as a journalist, maybe I could make my way to being one of his top speakers. "We'll take it," my mother said. "Great. Your work will start tomorrow. I can't pay you, but I hope this is good enough chance for you." "It's fantastic. But, Mr. Garrison, do you have a place we could stay, sir? We just got in today, and we haven't really had time to think about where we're going to stay. There's a loft above the house above that I house people in all the time. You two can stay up there until you find a more permanent place to stay." We thank him, and then we follow him up to the loft where a few other people bunk, most of them runaway slaves from the way they are dressed. There are two bunks that are on opposite sides of the room, and my mother takes her bunk on the left side of the room, beside a big man that I thought might crush her. I took my bed next to a small boy who was being scolded by his own mamma. After his mother had left, I turned to him, swinging my legs over the edge of the bed. "Hi, my name is Caroline. What's your name?" I asked, trying to sound cheery. "You don't have to try and be nice, ma'am. Don't take pity," he said, his voice little. "I'm not. I just got into Boston. I'm going to start working with Mr. Garrison as a journalist, and I'm just trying to know people around here." "Anthony." "What?" "My name is Anthony. Anthony Jones," he said with a flash of his yellow-tinted smile. "Well, it's nice to meet you, Anthony, and I would love to interview you for my first article in the paper." I smiled back at him. "Okay, I guess," he shrugged. "Okay, well, what was life in slavery like for you?" "We was treated bad. All the time. My mammy, she got beaten with whips if she didn't do her job. At first, it was all just pick from hand, until we got the cotton gin." "The cotton gin?" "Yeah, this guy made a thingy that helps process cotton faster. The master used to come around the fields, and if we weren't working fast enough, he would whip us. It was bad. Yes, ma'am. One night my mammy stuck me on a boat with a bunch of other people like me, and I was gone. I came here, and Mr. Garrison, the good man he is, he took me in, gave me a better life." "Oh, I think I know what you mean. The Eli Whitney cotton gin. I remembered watching on TV how slaves were made to work harder because of the cotton gin. That way the cotton could be produced faster. It started a huge cotton boom around the South. It made money for people who were already rich and made them richer. Meanwhile, slaves were getting treated badly, and few people were doing anything to stop it. My role model during that time was Angelina Grimke, who ran away from all that she knew and went to go fight a war that she wasn't certain she would win. I wanted to be a proud woman just like her, and so here I was. I slumped against the pillows, falling into a fitful sleep. When I wake up the next morning, I try to get ready for my first day as a journalist. I look at what I packed: dresses and one pair of my brother's slacks that are khaki colored. I pull those pants on with a shirt and a vest. I also pull on my riding boots and braid my hair back into a French braid. I look over at my mother, who's struggling to get her dress zipped. I tiptoe quietly behind her and zip her dress up, and this small action reminds me why I'm doing this all in the first place. I walk down towards the door and down the creaky stairs. I smell the warm smell of coffee that I've always associated with my daddy. I see Mr. Garrison back over his typewriter as if he had never left. "Good morning, Mr. Garrison," I say. "Good morning, Caroline. I'm heading out in a couple minutes to do some speaking. Would you like to come?" "Of course I would, sir." I jump at the chance to go out on my first job. I see Mr. Garrison slip on his coat and hat, and I know he is about to head out. I grab my small bag from under my bed, scrambling down the steps. I stuff a pen and paper into the bag before scooting out behind Mr. Garrison. We go to a small house, and a man with skin the color of cinnamon comes out of Hello, Garrison. I'm so glad you could come. Mr. Garrison introduces me, and then all three of us walk into the house. We're in the main room, a bunch of people sitting there in big dresses and suits, ready to listen. I go and sit among the people, my pen poised at the edge of my page. Garrison starts to speak, and I find there are many flaws in his speech. Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but there are many more people in captivity than what you are stating, I say, standing up. Well, why don't you come up here and educate us, Caroline Cassidy? I nod and travel to the front of the room. Words come out of my mouth before my mind can even process them, and by the time I am done, I have the whole room up on their feet. I was about to talk more when I heard a shot ring out. It sounded like a little pop. When I heard more pops, and I knew it was happening. I was now in the center of the most important war that this nation needed. This war was more than just a fight. This war was for the freedom of slaves, the very thing that Mr. Lincoln was trying to stop. Some people wanted to keep the slaves, while others didn't. I had known that this was going on, but now that I was in the center of it, I didn't want it happening. I looked out the window and people were fighting. Mothers were hugging their small infants close to their chests and running away from the warfare. I looked at all the soldiers and saw a familiar face. Warren! He turned towards the house and saw me staring out the window. I froze in my spot. That was my brother, the boy I'd spent my whole life with, the boy who had tried to keep me away from the danger of this war. I ran to the door, flinging it open. Warren stood in front of me, just staring at me. What are you doing here? Why are you fighting this war? I asked. The gun looked foreign in his hand, and I looked down at the ground that I knew I would soon be covered in blood. I want to fight for this, Caroline. After you left, Dad went ballistic, and he was so scared. At first I was too, but then I realized that you were going out and changing the world, and I wanted to be exactly like that. Fearless, independent, and strong. So I enlisted in the war. He smiled sadly at me. I had inspired this risk of his life. I didn't mean to do it intentionally. I was just fighting for what I thought was right. I took him in my arms and hugged him. Fight for us. Fight for this, and I will meet you back home. I love you, I whispered in his ear. He kissed my cheek and smiled at me and walked back to his troop. A tear slid down my cheek, and I wiped it away as Mr. Garrison came near me. We should go back to the office. It won't be safe here. He walked ahead of me, and it took me a moment to get back on track with him. I quickly fell back into step behind him. As we walked back to the building I had become more familiar with and now almost wanted to call home, I looked back at Warren, who smiled at me fleetingly before going back to his troop and listening intently. I didn't get any notes on the speaking today, sir. That's fine. You spoke instead. Instead, and that's the best thing that you could have done. As I walked back into the building, I realized that I had left my mother here. I raced up the stairs and looked to find her sitting on her bed, crying. I raced up to her, dropping my bag off of my shoulder, kneeling in front of her. Mama! I saw Warren. He's fighting in the war, I said, holding her hands in mine. I can't take that. He's my little boy. Why would he do that? He wanted to change something in his life. He wanted to do something for the greater good, like what we are doing. Her empty eyes search mine, and she hugs me tight, collapsing against me. Shortly after that day, my mother died of a bullet through her chest. I believe that she had wanted that to happen to her because she wasn't happy with my daddy, and she couldn't stand that Warren was in the war. Anthony was a huge support. He was a little boy who had been through so much, and some of my articles were about him and his journey as a slave and how he was able to escape. I stayed in Boston until I heard the Emancipation Proclamation was declared. I had Abraham Lincoln saying it on the radio, and I looked out the window and saw all the plantation doors fly open, and I saw a lot of slaves running from the grounds. Anthony stands beside me and sees his father. He runs out to him, putting his arms around him. He turns back to me and gives me a grateful smile before running with his dad down the street. After the movement is over, I pack up all of my things and look at Mr. Garrison. I give him an all-knowing nod, and I walk out the door. Caroline! I hear a familiar voice scream my name, and I turn around. A figure of a man runs towards me. As he gets closer, I know who he is. Warren. He survived. He's wounded with his arm in a sling, but otherwise he was all right. I dropped my suitcase, and when he rushed up to me, I flung my arms around him, feeling his chest rise and fall against mine. My brother had survived, besides seeing people dying in masses. We walked to the port, where our boat was waiting to take us home. After the long ride home, we both walked up the dirt path. A feeling of anxiety flowed through me when I stepped through the door of my house. Martha was nowhere to be seen, and my daddy was sitting on the couch alone. I dropped my suitcase on the ground, and my daddy turns to look at me. You're back, and so is Warren? Where's your mama? She had died, Daddy. I'm sorry. It's fine, baby. I'm just glad you're safe. He comes up and hugs me. I like feeling his arms around me and smelling the familiar smell of mint and cinnamon. I pull away from his embrace, going up the stairs to my room, feeling safe. My mission is complete, and so am I.